I'm Robert, 34 years old, a single dad to my 7-year-old daughter Lily. My sister Jessica and I have had a complicated relationship since childhood. What happened last month, though, shattered our family dynamics completely. When Lily was excluded from Jessica's extravagant children's brunch, while 89 other kids received invitations, something inside me changed. Before I tell you how I protected my daughter and taught my family a lesson about fairness, leave a comment sharing if you've ever faced family injustice. And don't forget to subscribe and like for more real-life stories about pro-cane sharing, standing up for what's right. Growing up, our family seemed picture-perfect from the outside. 2 parents, 2 kids, a dog named Charlie, and a house with a white picket fence in suburban Michigan. But everything changed when I was 12, and Jessica was 8. Our parents' marriage imploded after Dad caught Mom cheating with his business partner. The divorce was messy, filled with screaming matches and court appearances that dragged on for months. When the dust settled, Mom got primary custody of both of us, though Dad tried his best to stay involved. But something shifted in Mom after the divorce. Jessica became the center of her universe, receiving endless attention gifts and special treatment. I understood my mother's psychology to some extent. Jessica was younger, seemingly more vulnerable, and honestly, she looked more like Mom than I did. I was the spitting image of our father, a constant reminder of the man who in Mom's revisionist history had somehow wronged her despite her infidelity. "She's just a little girl, Robert. You need to be more understanding," became Mom's mantra whenever I complained about the obvious favoritism. When Jessica broke my science fair project the night before presentation, Mom said it was an accident. When she ruined my high school graduation party by throwing a tantrum because the attention wasn't on her, Mom said I should have been more sensitive to her feelings. When she borrowed my car in college and returned it with a dented fender, Mom suggested I should have been clearer about my boundaries. This pattern continued into adulthood. Jessica always needed rescuing, always had some crisis that required family attention and resources. Meanwhile, I worked my way through college, built a career in marketing, and tried to forge my own path. I met Amanda during my senior year of college. She was brilliant, ambitious, and didn't take nonsense from anyone, including my family. My mother never warmed to her, calling her controlling and not family-oriented enough. Jessica, picking up on Mom's cues, treated Amanda with barely disguised disdain. Despite my family's disapproval, Amanda and I got married after 2 years of dating. For a while, we were happy. When Lily was born, I thought nothing could ever come between us. But parenthood tested our relationship in ways we hadn't anticipated. Amanda's corporate law career demanded 60-hour work weeks, while my marketing job offered more flexibility. We disagreed fundamentally about childcare, finances, and family boundaries. After 5 years of increasing tension and failed couples therapy, we decided to divorce. To everyone's surprise, including my own, Amanda suggested I have primary custody of Lily. Her career was taking off, requiring frequent travel, and she recognized the strong bond I had formed with our daughter during her long work hours. The arrangement wasn't ideal, but we made it work. Amanda saw Lily every other weekend, and for extended periods during school breaks. We remained civil, even friendly, for Lily's sake. My mother and Jessica had a field day with the divorce. "I always knew she wasn't right for you," Mom would say, while Jessica nodded emphatically beside her. Neither of them acknowledged that by most measurable standards I was doing well. I had a stable job, a comfortable home, and most importantly, a wonderful daughter who was thriving despite the divorce. Jessica's life took a different path. After bouncing between various jobs and relationships throughout her 20s, she finally found her niche at 31. She started Enchanted Celebrations, a children's party planning service that quickly gained popularity in our area. I had to admit, despite our strained relationship, that Jessica had a talent for creating magical experiences for kids. Her events featured elaborate themes, professional entertainment, and Instagram-worthy food displays. Within 2 years, she had built a substantial following on social media and was booked solid for months in advance. Initially, Jessica seemed to have a decent relationship with Lily. She'd bring small gifts when she visited, and occasionally offered to take her for girls' days that inevitably included Instagram photo shoots for Jessica's business. But as time went on, these invitations became less frequent. When family gatherings occurred, Jessica would interact briefly with Lily before focusing on other relatives' children who were, as I later realized, more outgoing and photogenic. Lily has always been a sensitive child, not in the way my mother and sister characterized it as some kind of weakness, but in the way that meant she felt things deeply and observed the world with remarkable insight. She preferred one-on-one conversations to large group activities. She could spend hours drawing intricate pictures or building complex Lego structures. She asked thoughtful questions about everything from space exploration to why some people were mean to others. Her kindergarten teacher once told me Lily might be quiet, but when she speaks, everyone listens because they know it'll be something worth hearing. Our father passed away 3 years ago after a brief battle with pancreatic cancer. His death hit me hard, not just because of the loss, but because it eliminated the one person in our family who seemed to understand and appreciate Lily's gentle nature. Dad would sit patiently with her for hours, working on puzzles or reading books. He defended her when Mom or Jessica made dismissive comments about her being too serious or not social enough. After Dad died, I tried even harder to maintain family connections for Lily's sake. Despite the constant undercurrent of tension, I believed it was important for her to know her grandmother and aunt. We attended Sunday dinners at Mom's house twice a month. I invited them to Lily's school performances and birthday celebrations. I swallowed my pride and my growing resentment, telling myself that family was family, however imperfect. Looking back, I can see I was setting up both Lily and myself for the heartbreak that was coming. I was so focused on giving her the extended family experience I thought she needed that I missed the subtle signs of exclusion and dismissal that were increasingly directed her way. It was a Tuesday morning in April when I first heard about Jessica's upcoming event. I was scrolling through Facebook during my lunch break when a sponsored post from Enchanted Celebrations appeared in my feed. The advertisement featured a dazzling image of a children's brunch setup with the heading "Spring Spectacular, the ultimate children's brunch experience." The details were impressive even by Jessica's standards. According to the post, there would be a professional face painting station with designs created by a makeup artist who had worked on several Hollywood films. A magician who had performed at the White House would entertain the children with close-up magic. The centerpiece of the event would be a 5-tier cupcake tower featuring hand-decorated treats in spring themes. There would also be a professional photographer capturing magical moments throughout the event. I didn't think much of it initially. Jessica regularly hosted showcase events to promote her business. I assumed this was another one of those, perhaps with a few clients' children as participants for the photos. I closed the app and returned to my work, forgetting about it until later that afternoon. As I was leaving the office, my colleague Kevin stopped me in the parking lot. "Hey Robert, is Lily excited about the big brunch this weekend? My daughter Madison hasn't stopped talking about it since we got the invitation. Your sister really goes all out, doesn't she?" I felt a momentary confusion, followed by an uncomfortable realization. "This weekend? You mean Jessica's spring spectacular thing?" Kevin nodded enthusiastically. "Yeah, Madison says practically her whole class got invited. It's all the kids have been talking about at school, apparently." The invitation said there would be 89 children attending. "It's going to be quite the event." I managed a smile and a non-committal response before getting into my car. 89 children. That was specific, and apparently included many from Lily's school, possibly her class. But we hadn't received an invitation. When I picked Lily up from after-school care that day, she was quieter than usual. As we drove home, she finally spoke up. "Daddy, is Aunt Jessica having a party this weekend?" My heart sank. I heard something about that. Did someone mention it at school? She nodded, looking down at her backpack in her lap. Zoe and Emma and lots of other kids got special invitations with glitter and ribbons. They said there's going to be a real magician and cupcakes as big as your head. She paused, then asked in a smaller voice, "Did our invitation get lost?" I gripped the steering wheel tighter. "I'm not sure, sweetie. Let me call Aunt Jessica when we get home and find out." That evening, after Lily was occupied with homework, I called my sister. The conversation was brief and unsatisfying. "Oh, Robert, I was just about to call you Jessica," exclaimed with artificial brightness when she answered. "Of course, Lily is invited to the brunch. I must have forgotten to send her invitation with everything that's been going on. You know how crazy things get before a big event. Right, I said, keeping my tone neutral. Kevin from work mentioned it today. Apparently his daughter and many of Lily's classmates received invitations already. Yes, we sent those out last week, Jessica replied quickly. But don't worry, I'll drop Lily's invitation off tomorrow. It's this Saturday at 11, the Spring Garden on Maple Street. It's going to be amazing. I ended the call feeling uneasy. Jessica's explanation seemed plausible on the surface, but something felt off. Still, I wanted to give her the benefit of the doubt. Perhaps she really had simply forgotten. Wednesday came and went with no invitation. Thursday too. By Friday morning, with the event just a day away and no invitation in sight, I knew I needed to get to the truth. This time I called my mother. Mom did. Jessica happened to mention whether she sent an invitation to Lily for this brunch thing tomorrow. There was a telling pause on the other end of the line. Oh, Robert, she finally said with a sigh that contained equal parts exasperation and condescension. Jessica and I discussed this. We both agreed that Lily probably wouldn't enjoy this kind of event. You know how sensitive she is, how she gets overwhelmed in crowded, noisy situations. This is going to be a very big, very stimulating event. We thought she'd be happier doing something quieter with you instead. I felt a surge of anger rise in my chest, but forced myself to keep my voice steady. Mom, that should have been my decision to make as Lily's father. And Jessica told me earlier this week that she was planning to invite Lily. Well, my mother replied defensively, the truth is, this is also a business opportunity for Jessica. The photographer will be taking promotional photos for her website. Lily tends to hang back in group settings, and well, Jessica needed children who would photograph well for marketing purposes. The implication hit me like a physical blow. My daughter wasn't included because she wasn't outgoing enough to make Jessica's business look good. She wasn't pretty enough or sociable enough for Jessica's carefully curated social media aesthetic. I see, I said, my voice now ice cold. So it's not about Lily's comfort at all. It's about Jessica's business image. Don't be so sensitive, Robert. It's not personal. Jessica is building a brand here. She needs to showcase a certain type of experience, and that means having certain types of children in her photos. I'm sure you understand being in marketing yourself. I didn't trust myself to respond without saying something I'd regret, so I simply ended the call with a terse goodbye. I sat at my kitchen table, hands shaking with suppressed rage. 89 children had been deemed worthy of inclusion. 89 children, many from Lily's own class, would attend this spectacular event. Only my daughter had been deliberately excluded, all while Jessica and my mother had been planning to lie to both of us about the reason. That evening, I faced the challenge of explaining the situation to Lily without crushing her spirit. After dinner, as we sat together on the couch for our nightly reading time, I gently brought up the subject. Lily, I talked with Grandma today about Aunt Jessica's party. I began carefully. It turns out that Aunt Jessica is using this event to take pictures for her business, and she's focusing on a certain type of party that might not be as fun as it sounds. Lily looked up from her book, her eyes questioning. Is that why we didn't get an invitation? I hesitated, wanting to protect her feelings without lying. Yes, sweetie. Aunt Jessica made some choices about who to invite, based on what she needs for her business photos. Lily was quiet for a moment, processing this. Is it because I don't smile enough in pictures? Emma's mom always says I look too serious in the class photos. The innocent question broke my heart. No, Lily. It has nothing to do with you. Some people just don't understand that being quiet or thoughtful isn't a bad thing. It's one of the things I love most about you. She nodded, but I could see the hurt in her eyes despite her attempt to appear unbothered. It's okay, Dad. I probably wouldn't have liked it anyway. There would be too many kids and too much noise. Her attempt to comfort herself with the very excuse my mother had offered made my blood boil, but I kept my expression calm. You know what, I've been thinking we should do something special this weekend, just the two of us. How about we skip work and school on Monday and make it a 3-day adventure? We could go to the zoo, visit that new interactive science museum, and maybe check out the amusement park that just opened. Lily's face brightened. Really? We could do all that? Absolutely, I assured her. It'll be way better than some silly brunch with cupcakes. After Lily went to bed, I sat down at my computer and requested Monday off from work. Then I wrote an email to her school explaining she would be absent. With those practical matters handled, I allowed myself to fully feel the anger I'd been suppressing. I decided to confront Jessica directly before the event. The next morning, I dropped Lily at her Saturday art class and drove to Jessica's house, where I knew she would be making final preparations for the brunch. Jessica's surprise at seeing me on her doorstep was evident. "Robert, what are you doing here?" "I'm kind of in the middle of something," she said, glancing nervously over her shoulder at the boxes of party supplies stacked in her hallway. "We need to talk, Jessica. Now." Reluctantly, she let me in, leading me to her kitchen, where half-assembled favor bags were spread across the counter. "I really don't have time for whatever this island. The event starts in 3 hours, and I still have a million things to do." "I'll make it quick then," I said coldly. "I know Lily was deliberately excluded from your event tomorrow. Mom told me everything." Jessica's expression shifted from annoyed to defensive. "Mom should have kept that between us. Look, it's nothing personal against Lily. This is a business decision. The photographer is charging me a fortune, and these photos need to showcase children having the time of their lives. Lily Island." "Well, she's not exactly the life of the party, is she?" The casual cruelty of her words stunned me. "She's 7 years old, Jessica. She's a child, not a marketing prop." Jessica sighed dramatically. "I knew you wouldn't understand. This event could take enchanted celebrations to the next level. I've invited parent bloggers, local business owners, potential investors. Everything has to be perfect. Having a child who might be standing off to the side looking uncomfortable doesn't fit the image I'm trying to create. And you didn't think how it might affect Lily to know that all her classmates were invited except her. To understand that her own aunt considered her not good enough for a family event." "It's not a family event, Robert. It's a business event. And honestly, this is partly your fault. If you hadn't raised her to be so different, this wouldn't be an issue. Maybe if you had stayed with Amanda or found someone else by now, Lily would have a more normal home life and wouldn't be so awkward around other kids." That was the moment something snapped inside me. "You know what, Jessica? I'm done making excuses for you. I'm done pretending that your behavior is acceptable because we're family. Lily may be quiet. She may be thoughtful. She may not be the perfect prop for your Instagram feed, but she is worth 10 of you." I left Jessica's house and drove straight to my mother's, my hands still shaking with rage. Mom opened the door, one eyebrow raised at my unexpected appearance. "I suppose Jessica called you," she said with a sigh. "No, but I just came from her house. How could you support this, Mom? How could you think it's okay to exclude your own granddaughter because she doesn't fit some artificial standard of what a child should be like?" Mom invited me in, her posture stiff with disapproval. "You're overreacting as usual. This is an important opportunity for Jessica. Her business is finally taking off after years of struggling. I would think you'd want to support your sister's success at the expense of my daughter's feelings." "No, that's not how family works, Mom. And this isn't just about one party. I've noticed how you both treat Lily differently from other children in the family. The shortened visits, the lack of interest in her achievements, the constant criticism disguised as concern. It stops now." My mother's face hardened. "You always were too sensitive, just like Lily. I suppose that's where she gets it from. Jessica is practical like me. She understands what it takes to succeed in this world." As we argued, pieces of a larger pattern began falling into place. Comments my mother and sister had made over the years, the way they interacted with Lily, compared to other children in the family, subtle exclusions I had dismissed as oversights. "This is about Amanda, isn't it?" I finally said. "You've never forgiven her for not fitting your idea of what my wife should be, and now you're punishing Lily because she's Amanda's daughter." My mother's momentary silence confirmed my suspicion. "That's ridiculous," she eventually said, but her denial lacked conviction. I stood up suddenly, exhausted by the conversation. "I'm taking Lily on a special trip this weekend. We won't be around for your precious brunch or the fallout from it. But this conversation isn't over, Mom. Not by a long shot." As I drove to pick up Lily from her art class, my mind was racing. I had always tried to take the high road with my family, to forgive their slights and maintain relationships for Lily's sake. But now I realized that by doing so, I had allowed them to hurt the person I cared about most. That ended today. I wouldn't create a public scene or lash out in anger, but I would find a way to make Jessica understand that actions have consequences. I woke up early on Saturday, determined to make this day so special that Lily wouldn't spare a thought for Jessica's brunch. I had planned every detail the night before, from our breakfast of Mickey Mouse-shaped pancakes to the route we would take to hit all her favorite spots. When Lily padded into the kitchen, still in her unicorn pajamas, her face lit up at the sight of the festive breakfast spread. "Wow, Dad, what's all this for?" "Just because you're the best daughter in the world," I replied, flipping another pancake onto her plate. "And because we're starting our adventure day right now instead of waiting until tomorrow." I thought, why not make it a whole weekend of fun? After breakfast, our first stop was the city zoo. Lily had been fascinated by animals since she was a toddler and could recite facts about endangered species that would impress a graduate student. We spent hours wandering from exhibit to exhibit with Lily, providing running commentary on everything from the hunting habits of lions to the social structures of meerkats. "Dad, did you know that meerkats have different alarm calls for different predators?" she explained earnestly, as we watched the small creatures scurrying around their enclosure. "They even have specific calls for hawks versus eagles, even though they're both birds of prey." I didn't know that, I said truthfully, marveling at her knowledge and enthusiasm. This was the real Lily, passionate and articulate about subjects that interested her. How could anyone see this remarkable child as lacking in any way? After the zoo, we had lunch at a dinosaur-themed restaurant, where servers dressed as paleontologists and the menu items had names like pterodactyl wings and brontosaurus burgers. Lily giggled at the cheesy puns, her earlier sadness seemingly forgotten. Our next stop was the newly opened Adventure Planet, an indoor amusement park with rides and interactive games designed for children Lily's age. Despite her usual caution around loud, crowded places, Lily was eager to try everything. We rode the mini roller coaster 3 times in a row, played virtual reality games where we had to save alien worlds from destruction, and competed in a laser obstacle course that had us both laughing until our sides hurt. It was in the food court of Adventure Planet, as we were sharing a gigantic ice cream sundae, that an unexpected encounter changed the course of events. A man approached our table, his face breaking into a smile of recognition. "Robert Mitchell. Is that you?" I looked up to see Michael Thompson, a friend from high school, who I hadn't seen in years. "Michael, what are you doing here?" "Same as you, I'm guessing," he replied, gesturing to a boy about Lily's age, who was playing a handheld game at a nearby table. "Dad duty. That's my son Lucas. My wife's out of town for a conference, so we're having a boys' weekend." After introducing Lily, who politely shook Michael's hand before returning to her ice cream, we caught up on the last decade of our lives. Michael had gone into public health, and now worked as a food safety inspector for the county. "It's not the most glamorous job," he admitted, "but it's important work. You wouldn't believe some of the violations we find, especially in businesses that cater to children. Parents assume these places are being monitored closely, but the truth is we're understaffed and can only do so many inspections." My sister actually runs a children's party business I mentioned casually, Enchanted Celebrations. She's hosting a big brunch event tomorrow. Michael's eyebrows rose with interest. Enchanted Celebrations. The name sounds familiar. Has she been operating long? About 2 years officially, though. She was doing it informally for friends before that. She's become quite successful. The event tomorrow has 89 children attending. Michael whistled. That's a large gathering. She must have all her permits and licenses in order for an operation of that size. Something in his tone made me pause. What kind of permits would she need? Michael launched into a detailed explanation of the various requirements for businesses serving food to children. There's the basic business license, of course, but also food handling permits, health department certifications, background checks for staff working with children, liability insurance specific to food service. It's quite extensive, especially for events over 50 people. The regulations got much stricter after that incident at the Children's Festival last year, where 20 kids got food poisoning. As Michael continued, I realized with growing certainty that Jessica couldn't possibly have all these permits. She had started her business quickly, often complained about bureaucratic red tape, and frequently cut corners when she thought no one was looking. For smaller events, she might have flown under the radar, but a gathering of this size would require proper documentation. Does your sister prepare the food herself or use a licensed caterer? Michael asked. She does most of it herself, I replied. She's always posting photos of her kitchen creations on Instagram. Michael frowned. Her home kitchen. That's a red flag right there. Home kitchens aren't licensed for commercial food production in this state unless they've gone through a specific certification process. It's actually a serious violation to serve home-prepared food at a commercial event, especially one targeting children. As our conversation continued, Michael explained the potential consequences of such violations. Hefty fines, business closure, even legal liability, if anyone became ill. The more he spoke, the more I realized I had stumbled upon information that could have serious implications for Jessica's business. After we parted ways with Michael promising to get our families together soon, Lily and I continued our day of adventures. We visited a butterfly garden, went for a boat ride on the lake, and ended the day with dinner at Lily's favorite pizza place. Throughout it all, I couldn't stop thinking about what Michael had said. On our way home, Lily fell asleep in the car exhausted from our busy day. I decided to make one more stop before heading home. I drove past the spring garden, the venue where Jessica's brunch would be held tomorrow. Cars were parked outside, and through the windows I could see Jessica directing staff as they set up decorations. I noticed several folding tables being arranged in the main room, presumably where the food would be served tomorrow. As I drove home with my sleeping daughter, a plan began forming in my mind. I wasn't interested in revenge for its own sake, but Jessica needed to understand that her actions had consequences. More importantly, if she was cutting corners on safety regulations, she was potentially putting children at risk. That was something I couldn't ignore even for family. When we arrived home, I carried Lily inside and tucked her into bed. Then I went to my computer and began researching food safety regulations for our county. What I found confirmed Michael's statements and raised additional concerns about Jessica's operation. On a whim, I decided to drive by my mother's house. It was nearly 10 o'clock, but her lights were still on. I parked across the street, not intending to go in, just curious if she was home. A few minutes later, Jessica's car pulled into the driveway. She and Mom emerged from the vehicle carrying bags of what appeared to be party supplies. They were laughing and talking animatedly as they entered the house. I sat there for a moment watching the warm light spill from my mother's windows, feeling oddly disconnected from the family scene. They were preparing for tomorrow's event, an event that deliberately excluded my child. And in that moment, I made my decision about what I would do next. Sunday morning found Lily and me enjoying a leisurely breakfast before heading out for the second day of our adventure weekend. As she chattered excitedly about our plans to visit the Science Museum, I found my mind returning to the issue of Jessica's business practices. Once Lily was occupied with getting dressed, I made a few discreet calls. The first was to a former college roommate who had become an attorney, specializing in small business law. Without mentioning Jessica by name, I outlined the situation and asked about the legal requirements for a business like hers. His response confirmed my suspicions Jessica was almost certainly operating without proper licensing and permits. The penalties can be severe, he explained, especially if there's any evidence that the operator knew they were violating regulations. Food safety with children involved, the authorities take that extremely seriously. My next call was to a private investigator I had worked with on a marketing campaign for a security company. David was thorough, discreet, and owed me a favor. I explained what I needed documentation of Jessica's business practices, particularly regarding food preparation and service. I can have preliminary information for you by tomorrow afternoon, David assured me. Basic license checks can be done online, and I can have someone observe the event today without drawing attention. With these wheels in motion, I focused on giving Lily another wonderful day. We spent hours at the Science Museum, where Lily was particularly fascinated by the exhibit on sound waves. She stood transfixed before a display that showed sand particles arranging themselves into patterns in response to different frequencies. "Dad, look," she exclaimed, pointing to the intricate geometric pattern. "The sand knows what shape to make just by listening to the sound. It's like the sound is telling it a secret." Her poetic observation made me smile. This was the sensitive, insightful child that Jessica and my mother dismissed as too quiet or not sociable enough. Their loss, I thought, watching Lily's face light up with wonder as she discovered how the world worked. On Monday, while Lily enjoyed the final day of our extended weekend at the amusement park, I received a call from David. "You were right," he said without preamble. "Your sister's business is operating with numerous violations. She has a basic business license, but none of the required food service permits. The food for yesterday's event was prepared in her home kitchen, not a licensed facility. I have photographs documenting this, as well as statements from 2 staff members who weren't aware they were violating regulations." "What about background checks for people working with children?" I asked, thinking of the magician and face painters who had direct contact with kids. "None that I could find records of," David replied. "Additionally, her liability insurance specifically excludes food-related incidents, which means she's completely exposed if anyone were to get sick." After ending the call, I sat on a bench, watching Lily ride the carousel, turning this information over in my mind. Part of me wanted to confront Jessica immediately to demand she change her practices before someone got hurt. But another part of me knew she would dismiss my concerns, just as she and Mom had dismissed my objections to Lily's exclusion. That evening, after Lily was in bed, I began a more thorough investigation of my own. I searched through Jessica's business, social media accounts, taking screenshots of posts that clearly showed food being prepared in her home kitchen. I found promotional materials where she promised homemade treats and personally crafted delicacies, ironically using as selling points the very practices that violated health regulations. I compiled everything into a detailed document: Jessica's lack of proper licensing, the food safety violations, the absence of background checks for staff working directly with children. I included dates, screenshots, and relevant regulations that were being violated. By the time I finished, it was past midnight, and I had a comprehensive case that showed a pattern of willful disregard for safety standards. As I stared at the completed document, I wrestled with what to do next. Reporting Jessica to the authorities would likely result in significant fines and possibly the end of her business. It would certainly damage our already strained family relationships beyond repair, but allowing her to continue operating in violation of safety regulations meant putting children at risk. I closed my laptop without making a decision, choosing to sleep on it. The next morning, as I was making Lily's lunch for school, she asked an unexpected question. "Dad, are you going to tell someone about Aunt Jessica's business doing bad things?" I nearly dropped the sandwich I was wrapping. "What do you mean, sweetie?" Lily looked at me with those perceptive eyes that missed nothing. "I heard you on the phone yesterday. You said Aunt Jessica wasn't following the rules, and it could be dangerous." I sighed, realizing I should have been more careful about my conversation with David. I'm trying to figure out what the right thing to do is, Lily. Sometimes adults make mistakes or break rules, and other adults have to decide whether to tell them privately or report them officially. Lily considered this thoughtfully. At school, Miss Peters says if someone is doing something that could hurt people, we should tell a grown-up right away. But if they're just being mean or breaking small rules, we should try talking to them first. That's good advice, I said, impressed once again by her clarity of thought. The problem is, Aunt Jessica might not listen if I just talk to her, and what she's doing could potentially make children sick. Then you have to tell the people whose job it is to keep kids safe, Lily said with the simple certainty of a 7-year-old. Even if it makes Aunt Jessica mad at you. Out of the mouths of babes, I thought. Lily had cut through all my adult complications to the heart of the matter. This wasn't about revenge for excluding her from a party. It was about protecting children from potential harm. That afternoon, I finalized my report, adding contact information for the county health department and the business licensing office. I included a cover letter explaining that I was reporting these violations out of concern for public safety, particularly the well-being of children attending these events. Before sending it, I called David once more to verify the accuracy of all the information. Then, with a deep breath, I attached the document to emails addressed to the relevant authorities. My finger hovered over the send button for several long moments before I finally clicked it. It was done. Now all I could do was wait for the consequences to unfold. 3 days passed with no word from either Jessica or the authorities. I began to wonder if my report had been filed away without action, or if Jessica had somehow managed to quickly address the violations before an inspection occurred. Then on Thursday evening, my phone rang with Jessica's number on the screen. "Robert," she said, As soon as I answered, her voice tight with panic. I need your help. The health department showed up at my house today with a cease and desist order. They're saying I can't operate enchanted celebrations without proper food service licensing. There were inspectors and police officers, Robert. Police officers. At my house. They took photos of my kitchen and confiscated some of my supplies. They've issued me thousands of dollars in fines that I can't possibly pay. My business is ruined. I kept my voice neutral. That sounds serious. What happened exactly? They said they received a detailed complaint about food safety violations. Someone sent them photos of me preparing food in my home kitchen for commercial events. They have screenshots from my Instagram and Facebook pages. They even had statements from some of my part-time staff. Her voice rose hysterically. Someone deliberately tried to destroy me, Robert. Someone who knows my business intimately. Have you spoken with a lawyer? I asked, avoiding her implicit accusation. I can't afford a lawyer. All my money is tied up in the business and supplies and venue deposits for upcoming events that I now can't fulfill. I'm going to have to refund clients. I could even face legal action from them. She paused, then added in a quieter voice. Mom suggested I call you. She thought maybe you could help with the legal aspects or at least advise me on how to handle this. I'll meet you at Mom's house in an hour, I said after a moment of consideration. We should discuss this as a family. When I arrived at my mother's house, Jessica's car was already in the driveway. I found them in the living room, Jessica red-eyed from crying, Mom looking pale and worried. They both looked up as I entered, Jessica with desperate hope, Mom with a calculating expression that suggested she was trying to determine if I was there as an ally or an adversary. Tell me exactly what happened, I said, taking a seat across from them. Jessica launched into a detailed account of the health department's visit, the violations they had cited, and the penalties they had imposed. As she spoke, it became clear that the authorities had been thorough, documenting numerous infractions beyond just the food preparation issues. They said I need proper background checks for anyone working directly with children. Jessica said, her voice trembling. They said my insurance doesn't cover food-related incidents. They even questioned whether I have the right permits for the size of events I'm hosting. It's like they had a complete dossier on everything I've ever done wrong. It sounds like someone reported you very specifically. Mom interjected, her eyes fixed on me. Someone who knew exactly what to look for and where to find evidence. The accusation hung in the air between us. I met my mother's gaze steadily. Someone who was concerned about children's safety, perhaps. Jessica's eyes widened as understanding dawned. It was you, she whispered. You did this to me. Your own sister. I didn't deny it. Yes, I reported your violations to the health department and business licensing office. Not out of spite, Jessica, but because what you were doing was dangerous. You were preparing food for large groups of children in an unlicensed facility. You were employing people to work directly with kids without proper background checks. What if someone had gotten sick? What if someone with a criminal record had been hired to face paint or perform magic tricks? I would never intentionally put children at risk, Jessica protested. But you did, I countered. Every time you cut corners on safety regulations, you put those children at risk. The rules exist for a reason. This isn't about safety, Jessica spat, anger replacing her earlier desperation. This is about Lily not being invited to the brunch. You're punishing me because I hurt your precious daughter's feelings. That's part of it, I admitted. The way you treated Lily made me look more closely at your business practices. But I wouldn't have reported you if there weren't legitimate safety concerns. Mom had been watching this exchange with growing anger. Now she leaned forward, pointing an accusing finger at me. You've always been jealous of Jessica's success. You couldn't stand to see her building something of her own, while you've been stuck in the same job for years. This was pure vindictiveness. I turned to face her. Is that really what you think, Mom? That I would destroy Jessica's business out of petty jealousy? I've supported her endeavors from the beginning. I've promoted her services to friends and colleagues. I've defended her business model to skeptical acquaintances. The only thing I couldn't support was her willingness to put children at risk by ignoring safety regulations. You could have talked to me first, Jessica said, tears streaming down her face again. You could have warned me, given me a chance to fix things before reporting me. Would you have listened? I asked quietly. You didn't listen when I objected to Lily being excluded from your event. You dismissed my concerns then, just as you've dismissed other concerns I've raised over the years. Why would this have been any different? The room fell silent as the truth of my words sank in. Jessica stared down at her hands while Mom looked away, her lips pressed into a thin line of disapproval. Finally, Jessica spoke, her voice barely above a whisper. I never meant to hurt Lily. Not really. It's just... Everything always comes so easily to you, Robert. The perfect job, the perfect daughter. Even when Amanda left, you handled it with such grace. People admired you for it. Meanwhile, I struggled for years to find my place, to build something I could be proud of. And Lily. She reminds me so much of you. Thoughtful, intelligent, always saying the perfect thing at the perfect time. Lily is a 7-year-old child, I said, stunned by her perception. She struggles every day with feeling different from other kids. With being quieter, more thoughtful, less immediately engaging. And instead of supporting her, instead of showing her that those differences are valuable, you excluded her. You reinforced her fears that there's something wrong with her. Jessica's shoulders slumped. I know, it was wrong. I was jealous and petty, and I took it out on a child. Your child. I'm sorry, Robert. Truly. Mom looked between us, her expression softening slightly. Perhaps we've all made mistakes here. Jessica shouldn't have excluded Lily and Robert. You could have approached this differently. But what's done is done. The question now is, where do we go from here? I leaned back in my chair, considering. Jessica, you have two choices. You can fight the citations, try to minimize the penalties, and possibly continue operating in a gray area. Or, you can use this as an opportunity to rebuild your business properly, with all the necessary permits and safety measures in place. I can't afford to start over, Jessica said, wiping her eyes. The fines alone will bankrupt me. I might be able to help with that, I said slowly, an idea forming. Not by paying your fines directly, but by helping you restructure. My company has been looking for potential partners for our children's marketing division. If you're willing to operate by the book going forward, I could talk to them about bringing Enchanted Celebrations under our umbrella as a subsidiary. Jessica looked up, hope flickering in her eyes. You would do that, after everything? Not for you, I said frankly. For Lily. Because I want her to see that families can hurt each other but still find a way forward. That mistakes can be learning opportunities rather than endpoints. But it would come with conditions, Jessica. Complete transparency, full compliance with all regulations, and a genuine attempt to rebuild your relationship with Lily. My mother, who had been watching this exchange with growing surprise, finally spoke. I think I owe you both an apology. I've encouraged this rivalry between you for too long. I've favored Jessica and dismissed Robert's concerns. And I've failed to appreciate Lily for the remarkable child she islanded. It was the first time I could remember my mother admitting fault, and the acknowledgement felt like the breaking of a long-standing dam. The three of us talked late into the night, confronting painful truths about our family dynamics that had gone unaddressed for years. By the time I left, nothing was fully resolved. But for the first time, in a long time, I felt a glimmer of hope that real change might be possible. 3 months passed. Spring turned to summer, and with it came gradual but meaningful changes in our family. Jessica, with my help, had begun the process of rebuilding her business properly. She paid her fines, obtained all the necessary permits and licenses, and implemented proper food safety protocols. She even took classes in food handling and childhood development, showing a commitment to doing things right that surprised me. My company did indeed bring Enchanted Celebrations under its umbrella, providing Jessica with the structure and support she needed while allowing her to maintain creative control. The arrangement benefited both sides. Jessica gained financial stability and legal protection, while my company expanded into a new market segment with an established brand. More importantly than the business changes, however, were the shifts in our personal relationships. Jessica made a genuine effort to connect with Lily, spending time with her one-on-one and showing interest in her unique passions. Their first outing together after the brunch incident was to a quiet bookstore cafe where Jessica discovered Lily's encyclopedic knowledge of marine biology and her talent for sketching ocean creatures. She's remarkable, Robert, Jessica told me Afterward, genuine admiration in her voice. The way she sees the world, the connections she makes. I've been so blind. My mother too made efforts to change. She invited Lily for special grandma days that revolved around activities Lily enjoyed, rather than forcing her into situations that made her uncomfortable. She apologized to me haltingly, but sincerely, for years of favoritism and dismissal. I think I saw too much of myself in Jessica, she confessed during a private conversation, and too much of your father in you. After the divorce, it was easier to favor the child who didn't remind me of him. It wasn't fair to you then, and it wasn't fair to Lily later. The healing wasn't immediate or perfect. There were still tense moments, misunderstandings, and old habits that died hard. But we were all making an effort, and that counted for something. 6 months after the incident, Jessica hosted a small party specifically for Lily's 8th birthday. Unlike her previous extravaganzas, this was an intimate gathering with just 10 of Lily's closest friends held at a local aquarium that Lily loved. Jessica had obtained all the proper permits, hired a licensed caterer, and ensured that every aspect of the event complied with regulations. As I watched Lily explain to her friends why octopuses are the most intelligent invertebrates, her face animated with enthusiasm and her audience genuinely engaged, I felt a profound sense of gratitude. This was my daughter, in her element, appreciated for exactly who she was. Jessica sidled up beside me, following my gaze to Lily. I got it all wrong before, she said quietly. I thought successful events had to be big and loud and Instagram perfect, but look at them. They're having a wonderful time with just a few friends, some interesting animals, and good food. Lily taught me that. She teaches me things every day, I replied, like how standing up for what's right matters even when it's difficult, and how forgiveness isn't about forgetting what happened, but about choosing to move forward anyway. Later that evening, after the party had ended, and Lily was in bed, I reflected on the journey of the past 6 months. What had begun as a hurtful exclusion had led to painful confrontations, difficult truths, and ultimately, a stronger, more honest family. We had all been forced to examine our behaviors and assumptions, to acknowledge our failings, and to commit to doing better. Lily, with her remarkable emotional intelligence, had perhaps understood the situation better than any of us adults. One night, as I tucked her into bed, she had said something that stayed with me. Dad, I think Aunt Jessica was scared. Scared of what, sweetie? I had asked. Scared of not being special enough. Sometimes when people are scared like that, they do mean things to make themselves feel better, but they're still scared inside. The wisdom of her observation had humbled me. In focusing on protecting Lily, I had sometimes failed to see the broader picture, the insecurities and fears that drove my sister's behavior. Lily, despite being the one who was hurt, had shown more insight and compassion than I had. That didn't mean Jessica's actions were acceptable or that there shouldn't have been consequences. But it did remind me that behind every hurtful action is a person with their own struggles and pain. True justice acknowledges both the wrong that was done and the humanity of the person who did it. As for me, I learned that protecting those we love sometimes means taking difficult stands even against family. But it also means leaving room for redemption, for growth, for the possibility that people can change when confronted with their mistakes. Jessica's business continues to operate now, fully compliant with all regulations. It's smaller than before, more focused on quality than quantity, but it's built on a solid foundation that will sustain it for years to come. My mother has become more reflective, more willing to examine her own behaviors and biases, and Lily continues to flourish, secure in the knowledge that she is loved and valued for exactly who she is. Family relationships are complex, filled with history and expectations and unspoken agreements. When those relationships become toxic, when they hurt the vulnerable among us, something needs to change. Sometimes that change comes through confrontation, through consequences, through hard truths spoken aloud after years of silence. But if there's a willingness to listen, to acknowledge, to grow, healing is possible. Have you ever had to stand up to family members to protect someone you love? How did you balance justice with compassion? Share your experiences in the comments below. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this video if it resonated with you. Your stories help others know they're not alone in navigating difficult family dynamics. Thank you for listening, and remember, sometimes The most important family lessons come from the youngest among us.